All right. Good evening, everybody. We are back with another Phins forecast show. We have hopefully a special guest coming on tonight.
Oh, we sure do.
Yeah,
we sure do.
We do. There he is. So he's backstage right now. I'm going to give him a little introduction for you. So look, Philly Phins fan, we are honored to have one of the most respected and influential voices in Dolphins media joining us tonight.
Let's go.
This is awesome. He's built a massive community through his deep analysis, passion, and dedication to the Miami Dolphins. He breaks down every play, every decision, everything that matters to Miami Dolphins football. If you bleed aqua and orange, you already know his name. And when he's not diving deep into Dolphins football, he's taking over the gaming world on the second channel, Bit Boys. So check that out. All right, fins up, everybody. Make some noise.
Let's go.
It's DouglieDoWrong.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
There he is.
We're having
Hey, there he is. Look at that handsome fella. What's up, buddy?
That's a great intro. I never had an intro like that. I appreciate that.
Hey, only the best for the best, man.
We appreciate you coming on with us, man.
Yeah, when you guys asked, I was like, for sure. I definitely wanted to come on and chat with you guys.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
Awesome. So we're super pumped to have you on here with us, and I know I speak for everybody when I'm getting a little echo over here, but I know I speak for everybody when I say thank you for giving a fledgling channel like ourselves a chance.
Oh, definitely, yeah. That never matters to me. As long as you guys do great content and you're fair and balanced, I'll definitely come on.
We
Trust
try.
me, we're about as fair as balanced as you can get, brother.
We try. So we've introduced DouglieDoWrong. We've introduced our show. We're gonna get into the intro right now. All right. Good evening, everybody. We are back with another Phins forecast show, and we have DouglieDoWrong joining us. So awesome. I'm fanboying a little bit here. I watch the show all the time, man.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. I am a regular viewer, bud.
Appreciate that. I'm just a guy.
You're just the guy. The guy.
So I know we all have some questions for DouglieDoWrong here tonight. We all came prepared for questions. I think we sent them over to you to kind of prep a little bit. So who wants to start? All right, Josh,
I do. Pick me, teacher.
All
right. So we are kind of, just for those that are watching, we're really kind of covering a lot of the free agency kind of conversation that about the things that have already happened. Right, there have been moves made. We've kind of gone through what I think is probably wave 1, wave 2 of free agency right now, and we're trying to just assess kind of how things look, where we sit with some things. So wanted to ask you, what position do you think that the Miami Dolphins really should still address from a significant standpoint in free agency with what's kind of left?
See, that's a hard question because it's like a two-parter, because it's like, what do I think they should address, but also what's left.
Right.
And there's not much left in the position they really need to address, which is defensive line. From what I'm hearing is they gave Calais Campbell a contract, and it's now up to him what he wants to do. And again, what I'm hearing is it's either retire, go to the Dolphins, or go to the Ravens. And it's like, that's his decision. So, outside of that, you kind of looking like Linval is still out there, and there's like certain guys that are still out there. They could bring back Raekwon Davis, Benito Jones, John Jenkins, but we have Sealer, and that's about it. And it's not just like for the defensive tackles, for the left end and right end, it's Sealer. Like that's all we have. And that makes me incredibly uncomfortable, because I understand that this draft is deep at defensive tackle and defensive line. You're not going to draft 4 starters. We need corners, we need safeties, we need some other positions. And I feel more uneasy about that because we just need one guard. Maybe Isaiah Wynn comes back, maybe he doesn't. Maybe there's Dalton Reisner, there's Brandon Scherfs, there's Will Hernandez. There's guys out there, but it's for the defensive tackles. There's not a lot out there, so that's where I kind of get nervous.
I love it.
I also don't see at defensive tackle. I don't know if there's a lot of top end talent at the top of the first round. Like, would you go defensive tackle at 13 because it feels like a reach to go with one of those guys up there?
Like, I like Grant out of Michigan. He's a guy who I wouldn't be upset what they take at 13, especially if his counterpart at Michigan falls. It's another possibility, but there's a few guys that they could take in the first round. But like you said, when we get to 13, the Dolphins have options, and they might have a lot of options depending on who's there, whether it's safety, corner. Like Will Johnson, I'm hearing is falling on people's big boards, which that's crazy. He should be like a top 5 pick. So if he's there at 13, you kind of need that number 2 because you don't know how long Ramsey's going to be with us. So they have options, and not only do they have options about who they take, but they have options about trading down too. So it's going to be interesting.
Everybody says the combine doesn't matter, and then a guy like Will Johnson runs a suboptimal 40, and suddenly he's dropping. I can't reconcile that in my head.
Yeah, right.
I'm rooting for guys.
It's the underwear bowl, and you shouldn't really take that seriously.
Yeah.
I'm just rooting for all those position guys to go high so that those other guys that we need fall. Like, come on. Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, like get up there in that top 12.
The fact that I'm hearing Jackson Dart's name in like the top
insane.
Is nuts. Like, don't get me wrong. He's like, if the Dolphins took him in the second round, I'd be like, that's a nice, pickup, and we can build with him. And I could see it being a Lamar Jackson situation where he starts falling. He's in the late 20s. A team trades up to get him. That's a possible. But like, if you're going to tell me the Giants are going to take him at 3, I want to know what you're smoking.
That's such a Giants move, though. So maybe it does.
Yeah, exactly. They took Daniel Jones. Like, come on.
That's a bigger point about the D line too. Mason Graham comes at the combine in 290, was at 320. I don't think a lot of people were really thrilled about that. So there's a very good chance he ends up being at 13 as well.
I really think that he cut weight just to run a faster 40, and his playing weight is in the low 3s. I mean, it has to be. Right?
Yeah, you got a guy like Derek Harmon out of Oregon who might be a guy you could trade down and still get. 6'4", 313, ran a 4.95.
Yeah, yes, please.
Like, are you kidding me?
That's awesome.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
All right. Next question. Taylor?
So, Doug, when you're evaluating talent, whether that be for the NFL draft, for free agency, or just for Dolphins film breakdowns you do each and every week, what's a trait that really sticks out to you, really? Is it toughness? Is it fast, the speediness? You know how Mike McDaniel loves that. So what's something that just sticks out to you?
For me, it's like resiliency. Like, I really like a guy who doesn't stop. Because you'll see there's guys who, they keep getting beat, like whether it's a pass rusher, they keep getting, they're stonewalled essentially from a right tackle, left tackle, wherever. And you can see they kind of slow it down. They're like, all right, I'm not getting through this guy. Let me just make sure the quarterback doesn't scramble. Or, you have these corners who are like, the ball is thrown to the opposite side of the field and they kind of just like, all right, it's over there. I like the guys that have that resiliency, like Christian Wilkins, like Jalen Phillips, like these guys who pass rush 5 yards upfield and then proceed to go another 15 downfield to make the tackle. I like that. Speed obviously is intertwined with that, but I like a guy who doesn't stop fighting, like Calais Campbell, who's 39. And how many times do we see all of a sudden he just shoot into the backfield and make a tackle? Like, it was ridiculous.
And play the season. It was like a sack, I think.
Yeah.
So
I remember I was not high on the Chop pick when it happened last year, but if there was one thing they said about Chop, one thing they said was his get off. His get off the line was, through the charts, off the charts. But the other thing was he never gives up on any play. And that's one of the things I did like about him. And you saw that manifest itself out in the field last year.
And Chop's biggest thing, because he was one of the 5 that I liked. I think we were picking at like 20, 22. He was one of the top when I started seeing, I liked not Vita. He went to the Rams.
Verse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot, but obviously I knew he wasn't going to fall to Miami. So when the Dolphins took Chop, I was happy with it. And I knew he was raw because he didn't have a lot of sacks coming into Penn State, and he needed to work on his pass rush skills. And you saw that with the Dolphins, because as the beginning of the season, everyone's like, oh, where's Chop? He's a bust. He's a bust. He's a bust. As the second half of the season came in, he started sack. And then all of a sudden, he was sitting at 6, 7 sacks on the season because he was able to work with these guys like Calais Campbell, like Sealer, like Phillips and Chubb off of the field and build up on that. I'm expecting a higher sack total from him, especially at the beginning of the year, because another year under his belt, because like you said, Phil, he's got that motor, he's got the resiliency, he's got the get off, he just needed the technique. And I think another year with Weaver, I think he's really going to get that technique.
Yeah, it was funny because at the beginning of the season you'd see Chop and he'd be like, all you got to do is
So
Anthony said it so many times on the show. It's like, just put your arm out, dude. Just put your arm out, and you would have had like 5 extra sacks.
Or when they fall, him and Phillips love falling, and I'm like, guys, get deeper cleats.
Like,
Stop taking that angle, man.
It was the first game against the Bills. Josh Allen is right there. All he had to do was reach out, and he runs right past him. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's the other thing I noticed with him and Phillips. They're so fast that these tackles use their speed against them and kind of push them past the quarterback. Yeah, they'll learn. Yeah,
but it was really cool to see his. I know we're not talking about this isn't a segment about Chop Robinson, but it was really cool to see his evolution in the run game, which I thought at the end of the season really showed. Like, dude, you're putting in some work.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wasn't high on the pick, and I wasn't high on the pick at the beginning of the season. But there was an episode earlier on in the season where I got into it with Josh and Anthony because they were both really high on the pick, and we kind of went back and forth for a good long time about how I wanted a guard. I wanted a guard last year. I wanted Graham Barton. And when they went Chop Robinson, I was not a happy camper.
It sucks though because that's Greer. Greer doesn't like taking guards in the first round. Like the last time we took a guard center in the first round was Pouncey. It was a long time ago. He likes those premium positions, the corners, the safeties, So I don't even know if he does it this year. Like one might fall to us at 13, and he might just take a pass rusher or something because that's just his MO for 10 flipping years.
Well, that's because we are more worried about the offensive line than
status quo, baby. Status quo.
I'm just saying. Right?
Well,
Pouncey was a Hall of Famer. He's like, he looked at that and he's like, nah, we don't need that.
Yeah, right.
Don't worry about it.
That was a wrong choice. I made a mistake.
Well, speaking of offensive line, I am a big offensive line guy. If you've watched the show at all, you know that I am pretty much obsessed with the offensive line. And going into last season, I was, looking at Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg starting guards. I was just, I was beside myself, man. I was mortified. And I watched your show yesterday, Douglie, and you said the offensive line scares the crap out of you. I think was the term that you used, and I'm right there with you, man. I am right there with you. I think we're all right there with you. So, with that being said, they signed James Daniels to be one of the guards. They're retaining Patrick Paul. They're retaining Austin Jackson, Brewer, Brewer at center. In an ideal world, in a realistic world, how do you see the offensive line shaking out in week one? Like, what would be your optimal starting front five?
Kind of what you named. I would like to see Teron Armstead come back. When I talked to him, he didn't seem like he was against it, but he didn't really he's really taking his time, and he really helped the Dolphins out with taking that pay cut while he's taking his time, which take all the time you need because he doesn't really need to do OTAs and all that stuff. Yeah. So if he doesn't come back, then the guys you named, and then at left guard, I pray to God it's not Liam Eichenberg. And, we don't know his contract, right? Yeah. And he signed it, though. Like, he was on the Dolphins Twitter, and he made his Dolphins video saying, I'm back, yada, yada. We don't know the details of his contract. If it's anything above 3 to 4 million, he's going to start. And that bothers the crap out of me. But even if not that, he's not going to get cut. If it's anything above 3 to 4 million, he's not getting cut.
Yeah.
And which means he'll be a backup. And in the NFL, injuries happen. So he eventually will start. I can see them bringing back Isaiah Wynn. I've noticed that a lot of these guards that I do like the Dalton Reisner, the Will Hernandez, all those guys are taking their time to sign with teams. And then you have the draft. And there are some really good guards that I like that will be available in the second round. Like I said, don't hold your breath that Greer's going to take a guard at 13. Don't even hold your breath that Greer will trade down and take a guard. He doesn't like taking interior offensive linemen in the first round. He took Austin Jackson. He took Laramie Tunsil. He doesn't like taking interiors. But in the second round, he did take Robert Hunt, which was, home run. So there are some guards, but it depends on, did they up their stock? Like Gray Zabel, like I love him, but
yes, I do.
I think he's a first rounder now.
Yeah, exactly. And Savini, I think that's how you say his name, Savini.
Yeah,
Arizona, 6'4", 324. He ran a 4.95. Like he's a huge, massive, fast man, and that'd be perfect for this zone run scheme. Second round. So that might be your guy at left guard. If not, hopefully it's a vet.
Yeah.
But it's
I'm a
the
big
depth
fan
that scares me.
Like Greg Van Roten. I think he'd be like a perfect stopgap.
Well, he went back with the Giants. So
he did. Oh,
yeah.
shoot.
And Risner, you mentioned Risner. He probably won't come to Miami because him and Butch Berry, our offensive line coach, they do not have a great history with one another. They're not. They're not big fans of one another.
Slim pickings.
Yeah.
What's the feeling on if Armstead does come back and now we have Patrick Paul kind of sitting there and Austin Jackson's coming back from a serious injury? Like, what's the feeling on sliding those guys around? Maybe putting Paul at right tackle and sliding Austin in, or like, have you heard anything about what their thoughts are on how that could work out?
It's hard. I talked to an offensive lineman a while ago, and he said that going from left tackle to right tackle is like wiping your butt with your right hand and then trying to do it with your left hand. It's hard to do because, again, it's that first kick step. So if you're playing left tackle, it's your left foot. And then you've been doing it for so long that all of a sudden you're going the other way. You got to do it with your right foot. You're slower. You're much slower. You're letting the DN go around you. It's like when Carmen was the right tackle against Houston, and we were getting destroyed. So they'll probably keep it status quo, and I really would be shocked if they took Patrick Paul and put him inside because he's just massive. He lost weight too. Like he's not. He's like lean, is what Armstead said. Like he's really lean and he's really fast.
He's 6'8" though.
From what I'm hearing, though, is if Armstead doesn't decide to retire, they might just do a June 1st cut on him.
That sucks.
Which, sucks because I like him. He followed me on Twitter, so
unlike Bradley Chubb, who blocked you.
Yeah, I don't get it. I said nothing bad about the man, and he blocked me. I don't get it.
He was just anticipating you were going to say something bad.
Right? He's like, nope. He's going to say something. Block.
Yeah, the reason we all laughed when you said Jackson Carman is there's like a running joke on the podcast where the game after he started or was in for the majority of that game, we have a segment on the show during the season called Game Balls and Jockstraps where we give a jock, we each take a player that gets a jockstrap, and Keith, Philly Phins fan, Keith, like obliterated this poor kid.
Yeah,
like just annihilated.
He got destroyed by what was it? Anderson? Like he just got destroyed. And the game was still close. It was an 8-point game, and he was just one after like two. Was getting destroyed that game.
Look, I mean, I'm not proud of how pissed off I was at him, but in my defense, Will Anderson stole his soul in that game. Like he absolutely just ate his lunch. But yeah, I gave him the jockstrap, and I didn't feel bad about it.
You eviscerated that poor young man.
I mean, I could have played right tackle better, and I'm 5'10", 150, soaking wet, right? The dude was a turnstile.
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about, free agency as it compares to the draft now. Like, to me, free agency has been about depth and only depth. I haven't really seen any huge signings, the guys who are must-start players. I mean, maybe James Daniel, but we even only gave him $8 million a year, so that doesn't scream like this guy has to start, although I hope he does. So, like, has anything changed for our draft, or are we just kind of putting the chips all in on the draft and hoping that, you know, we get the pieces we need to build a championship contender?
I think with the addition of Willie Gay Jr., linebacker, it seems like a stretch at 13, which breaks my heart because
Yeah.
Jahad Campbell's number one for me.
My God.
Even with the injury update that we got recently, I'm still taking Jahad Campbell because it wasn't in his legs, so he could still move the way he's been moving. He's going to be dangerous. Like, he might be the next Ray Lewis, and I'm pretty sure we all would love that on this team. But outside of that, no, yeah, it hasn't changed. They added some solid pieces in free agency at safety, Fatu Melifanu, which I will never say that name wrong now, just like I got Noah Igbenogany when we drafted him. He's not a bad safety, but he's injury prone. Then you got Ashton Davis, who is a thumper, but he kind of struggles in coverage. Like, we added guys that could start, but they have problems. And, we all added these guys for 1 year. So no, nothing really changed. Like, if Will Johnson's there, they'll probably take him. The decision between the safeties is going to be interesting. I'm a Nick Emanwari guy, really like him. You're 6'3", 220, and you run a 4.38. Please join my team. Like, I would absolutely love that. But then you have Starks as well, who has like the fundamental aspect to it. Then you got pass rusher. They could add a pass rusher, defensive lineman. But like I said, interior offensive line would be shocked if they draft one. But I have a list here of people that I would love to add.
I like Emanwari too, but I'm wondering if he isn't a bit redundant with the safeties they've already brought in. He seems like more of an in the box kind of guy, like an extra linebacker type of guy, and with the addition of like Ashton Davis, with the addition of Melifonwu, it seems like Malachi Starks might be a better fit for what the Dolphins are lacking in the safety.
Yeah, he's got the technique. It would be a good combination with the Ashton Davis, who's a thumping safety / linebacker.
You look at who we brought in free agency in the safety room. We have a lot of Robins, right? We need that one Batman. And that's a poor analogy maybe, but like, we need we have a lot of what kind of Javon Holland had, right? He was more of the inbox, like he would hit the holes. We need that kind of free safety center fielder, right? I don't think any of these guys, they can play that. I think they can fill that role if needed, but I think we would be misusing their talents or where their strengths are if we required Melifonwu to sit in the backfield, 15 yards deep and not try to blitz a hole or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you got guys like Xavier Watts who will probably be there in the second round you could take, and it's your first two picks need to be starters.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's and we've been good at that recently. Chop was a starter, Patrick Paul could have been a starter, and then you have Javon Holland, Phillips, and Waddle, all starters. So we've been good at getting starters in the first two rounds, but they have to, especially if McDaniel and Greer want to be coaching and be the GM next year. They have to be starters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a big ass question right there, isn't it?
Yep.
That's what I was saying on our show last week. It's like they're spending so little, so frugally. I'm like, do they realize they could not be here next year? Like,
you look at their contracts, and it seems like because even James Daniels' contract, it's a 3-year contract. There's an out after this year. He has no guaranteed money after this year. All of the contracts they've given out are essentially 1-year contracts because they don't know if they're going to be on the team next year.
And even Tua, like they could have kicked the can down the road with a salary cap number, but basically they're keeping things as is. If they need an out next off season, they got one. For not, the cap hit's going to be, significant number, but it's not going to be nearly as significant if they would have restructured his deal and gotten $19 million more in cap space this off season.
And the biggest number too is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
53, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, and they cut him, and they instantly, they don't even have to wait to post June 1st, to a March 14th, whatever. They instantly cut him. They saved $36.3 million instantly.
Insanity.
So, you know how many players you could sign with that money. So, that's why keep an eye out for Tyreek Hill. And he will be on the team, but will he? Is all I'm going to say to you. I can't really tell you too much about
No,
that.
that's cool. Hey, I'm gonna be honest. On this podcast, there's quite a few of us who, there's one of us who I won't name that maybe not a fan of it, but we are advocates for, Tyreek Hill. Thank you for your service. You have a tall woman fetish, and you have more babies and touchdowns. I'll catch you on the flip side. You know what I mean?
Because from what I'm hearing, they want him on the team, but
Not that bad.
that's all I'm gonna say. I can't say
you're
much.
good.
Smart with,
You're good.
Well, been smart with that in the past. I mean, he got the king's ransom from the Texans for Tunsil, and he was like, well, I have to take this, right? Like, I think if a deal comes around that you have to take, I think Greer will take it.
If they offer a first, yeah, he's gone. Yeah, 100%.
Do you think if something like a second and like a late round pick swap comes around draft time or something like that, do you think that that's something that they would entertain, or is that in their minds still too low for what he produces? Because he is coming off of, last year was bad, but 2 seasons ago, back-to-back 17 plus.
If it's like, so for the second round, it's like the 13th, 14th pick, or like around our second round pick, probably. Yeah. I could see that being the thing, a second and whatever, because he also had the wrist surgery. So it's like, his price isn't going to be as high as it normally was. And he had the off year, and he has the off the field issues where some teams are probably like, I don't feel like dealing with it. But then you'll have teams like the Raiders, like Washington, like the Bears. Apparently there's like a rumor going around that the Bears might be interested in him with Caleb Williams.
They need another wide receiver.
Right. So, maybe do a swap. You never know. Yeah. Dolphins, but with the addition of Westbrook, I'm not as upset. And there's some good wide receivers late, and then Malik Washington was playing really well. He's not a necessity, and a lot of people want to come on and say that, Tua doesn't do well without Tyreek. That's not true. Tua actually does pretty well without Tyreek. Yeah. So,
well, especially when he's dropping every other touchdown. But that's a topic for another show.
I will say this, the Tyreek Hill thing. That's something we certainly speculated on this channel, ad nauseum. What's going to happen with him. I think we've all reached the point that you just mentioned, where it's like, if he's here next year, great, we'd love to have him because he's Tyreek Hill. But if we get the right price for him, all right, I'll pack your bags for you, brother.
Exactly.
You off the
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I was happy to see though, not to harp on the wide receivers here, kind of going down a rabbit hole, but we said it on the show quite a lot that we needed diversity, in physicality, right? Because we were very like Ferrari in a snowstorm with our short, fast guys, and we needed some height and some weight and some 50-50 ball type wide receivers, and that's why I was really stoked to see what that we signed Westbrook Akine, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Yeah.
Because all of our receivers were under 5 foot, under 6 foot, and we finally got a guy who's 6'2", 6'3", and had 9 touchdowns last year on the Tennessee Titans. Like, you watch his film, and like they were throwing fades to him from the 25-yard line. That's what we needed. So we stopped throwing fades from the 5 to Tyreek Hill. Like, do it to Jonnu. But that also is a Mike McDaniel problem that he's not going anywhere yet. So we'll see.
That's another topic that could get us going.
Trust us. Yeah. All right, so I wanted to touch on the CB2, right? Which is one of the, I think, in my opinion, probably the biggest need right now as our team stands, right? So, what direction would you like to see us go in the for the CB2? Would you in-house? Do we have something in-house? Is it a combo of whatever we currently have on the roster, plus maybe a second or third tier, vet, or is it just, we're gonna pause on this right now and we'll see how the draft falls?
It depends on the free agents, because there are some free agents that are out there that I'm interested in seeing, and we did bring in Artie Burns, but that's nothing to pound your chest about and say like, oh, we found our number 2. Artie Burns is more of a Siren Neal replacement than he is a number 2 corner. Asante Samuel Jr. is just a name that I'm constantly like, I understand he's injured. I understand he has a little, problems here and there, but his speed and his closing and his athleticism, I would add him. He's 25. Like, bring him in, give him a 2-year contract. Do what you did with the other guys, with Westbrook, give him a contract that you have a potential out, but if not, you still have him under contract to keep him and keep his rights to give him an extension. That's what I would do. And then I would draft, I would draft somebody again, if Will Johnson's there at 13 or, whatever happens. But they need to address corner. They need to add somebody, whether it's a Rasul Douglas or a Mike Hilton or one of these vets that can plug in and instantly help us, because Rasul Douglas had a bad year last year, but before that he was a really good corner. He got traded to the Packers, so that's my guy. If it's not Asante Samuel Jr., I would add Rasul Douglas, especially because you're going up against the Buffalo Bills, and he could definitely help us in that situation.
Yeah,
unless he's another plant like Poyer, then I don't want any part of him.
My only problem with Rasul Douglas is that he's never been the fastest guy. He's reaching that 30-year-old. I think he's actually 30 years old now. But he's getting up there in age where he was never the fastest guy, and now he's going to be a step slower. So will he be a liability? Will he be to your point, a Jordan Poyer-esque liability?
Oh God, what a dumpster fire!
And that's you don't want to bring in a guy a year too late, and I think that could be the case with a guy like Rasul Douglas. Asante Samuel Jr., though, I'm all in on. I love that.
Do you think that the contract for Asante Samuel would be, maybe a 1 year with the team option for year 2 or something? But do you think it would be substantial?
That's what some people are wondering and worrying about. I know one person on Twitter was like, "Oh, he wants 15 million. That's why the Dolphins aren't going to do it."
So do I.
And they could want what they want. But, if you're not getting it, and if you're coming off of a shoulder injury and all this stuff, like Javon Holland wanted the Dolphins to back up the Brinks truck. He got, 15 million, give or take? He didn't get nowhere near top money because his play didn't dictate it. And that's, again, with Asante Samuel Jr. I'd give him 10. I'll give him a 1 year, 10 million, or 2 year, with incentive based. I'd give him around there, but I'm not. No, if he wants 15 and then a desperate team pops up and pays him 15, well, good for you.
Yeah. Very, very cool, man.
Taylor, I think you're up, man.
So I'm gonna kind of steal Anthony's question as well, because mine kind of leads right into it. Sorry, Anthony, but with free agency going the way it's went, and we're about a week and a half into it now, it feels like all of the big names are gone, and this is kind of a down free agent class. I'm putting it very mildly. This is a trash free agent class compared to That being said, are there any names out there right now that you're like, oh, this could be a guy for us that could be a day one contributor
in free agency?
Yes.
There's a few. Like, if the Dolphins don't bring in Calais Campbell, you got like Zadarius Smith, who could definitely come in and instantly start. They tried to trade for Matt Judon last year. That's a name you can bring in. These guys are 1 year cheap deals that you can bring in. Justin Simmons, safety, bring him in. And then all of a sudden you got your guy. You got that alpha. Even Quandre Diggs is another safety that I would like to bring in. You got Isaiah Simmons, but this is before we brought in Willie Gay. Defensive tackle wise, I don't even know. I would still bring in another running back, and the name I would bring in is Nick Chubb.
Love it.
Could you imagine?
Go give him a contract. See what he can do. Because the rumor of Emmanuel Ogbah and Jeff Wilson Jr. makes me angry. Because again, the owner comes out, gives us this letter saying status quo isn't good enough, and we don't want you to think that the play on the field was good enough, yet you bring back the players that aren't good enough. So just go out and get yourself, like, even a J.K. Dobbins is still out there. They'll be cheap.
Yeah.
Go out there and get them. That's what I would do.
That's what this team is. That running back room is missing, right? Is that I need 3 yards. I'm going to hand it to this dude, and he's going to push the pile and fall forward.
And they might not, because Alexander Madison is that guy. I think it was like 23 of 26. Short downage. He's converted. So they hear us and they realize the problem, but it's like they're like, we could do this, but we're going to do this. Like, we hear you, and we have 2 options. This is what you want. this isn't what you want, but it'll answer the option. We're going to do that one. Like, we'll shut you up, but it's not what you want. It's like telling us, we have ice cream at home, and you know what I'm saying? Or, we have video games at home and stuff, and it's like knockoff Temu stuff. It's
Yeah,
just,
I got it upstairs. Assassin's Creed Shadow.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And yet that Alexander Madison signing, that doesn't inspire much, in any of us, but it could turn out to be a good signing. Could turn out to be a solid signing. But I love Nick Chubb. Bringing in Nick Chubb would just.
He's still out there. A lot of these guys, and are they going to wait till after the draft, which is a possibility?
Yeah.
Last year a lot of good players got signed after the draft, and some got cut. So, there still is time, but I just the slow playing of it makes me uneasy.
Yeah. About that, right? The slow playing, right? While we're on that topic. So it seems like and Anthony, please stop me if I'm stealing your thunder here, because I haven't seen your questions, but like, it seems like this front office set their price at every position and just shotgun that price out to every free agent in that position room and said, who wants it? Right. We're not going to budge, right? We're not going to, well, maybe we'll go up by, a year on the contract on the tail end or something. But do you think that was intentional, or do you think that was more timid, them being timid because of the uncertainty at what could happen with them?
I think it was a combination of things. I think they were trying something different, which are you really? Because you kind of did the same thing last year. They were trying to go in a different direction, and they also didn't have money, and they don't want to stronghold themselves with doing Tua's contract, with doing Austin Jackson's contract. Like, that's what they've been doing. Like, they did it with Tyreek, they did it with Jalen Ramsey, they did it with Teron Armstead before, and Bradley Chubb, where they kind of kicked the can down the road and it kind of hurt them. So they were in a situation they were in this year. I think it's a combination of that, and also, like you said, they don't know the future. They don't know their own future. So, they don't even know if they will be with the organization come. They start 2-6. I will be shocked if they're both not fired. Like, Ross has to do something because he's losing the fan base. He's lost a big portion of it, and he's starting to lose more of them if things keep going the way they have.
Fact.
Well, he'll never lose me because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Remember when we had Philbin and somebody hired the plane to fly over the stadium and
with
fire
the banner?
Philbin? You remember?
That was amazing. Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm pushing 40. I've been a Dolphins fan my entire life. I'm sinking with the ship. Right?
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Same here.
South Florida team. Not everybody is, right?
I'm gonna take.
I'm originally from Miami. I live in Connecticut now. I'm from Miami, so I'm a diehard Miami sports fan team. Or you know what I'm trying to say.
I'm from Philly, obviously. I'm from Philadelphia, and if there's another team in the NFL that I can wax poetic on, other than the Miami Dolphins, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. And I bring them up only to illustrate this point. Their offensive line has been probably the top offensive line in the NFL over the past 5 years. Watching them work, it's like watching poetry on a football field. It honestly is, and it goes beyond guys like Jason Kelsey. It goes beyond guys like Lane Johnson, who are first ballot Hall of Famers. They turned Jordan Mailata, who was an Australian rules rugby player, into a second-team All-Pro. Cam Jurgens comes in for Jason Kelsey last year, and they don't skip a beat. That's the kind of offensive line I want the Dolphins to have going in. So this is kind of an off-the-cuff question here, but how do the Dolphins get to that point? It can't just be talent. It can't just, it's a combination of talent and coaching. I know the Eagles have Jeff Stoutland, who's probably the best offensive line coach in the NFL right now. How do the Dolphins? Because personally, if I think the Dolphins' offensive line was the biggest thing holding them back last year, and you fix that, you fix a lot of issues on this team. So how do we get there?
You look at 2023, and the Dolphins for the first 4 to 5 games had one of the best offensive lines in football. When you had Teron Armstead, you had Isaiah Wynn, you had Connor Williams, you had Robert Hunt, you had Austin Jackson. Then they all started getting hurt. Connor Williams got hurt, then Isaiah Wynn got hurt, then, they came back, they got hurt again. It's a combination of picking the right people and also coaching them properly. And the picking is about finding the healthy ones. Like, we knew Isaiah Wynn had an injury history, so seeing him get hurt in 2023 and then, you know, still not being healthy for last year shouldn't be a shock. Teron Armstead, injury history. You know, the man, I don't think he's ever played a full season. Last year might have been the first time he played as much as he did. All of these guys had injury histories, and we were sitting here hoping and praying that all 5 of them can stay on the field at the same time. You look at the Eagles, they all predominantly stayed healthy for a good 99% of the season. So, you know, if that happened to us in 2023, I think it would have been a completely different story to have our offensive line, because you saw the run game change. We were running a lot, and then the guys started getting hurt. And then at the end of the year, you know, a lot of people want to talk about 2023 and the yardage and the touchdowns and everything. It all disappeared that last 3 games of the season. And then it really disappeared last year when we lost out on Hunt and we didn't have Connor Williams and Isaiah Wynn. And that's a big thing. So I think it's a combination of coaching, but also, you know, finding the right players and stop adding injury prone players.
Is Butch Berry the answer at offensive line coach?
I like him. Again, to me, he was a big part of 2023 and why they did so well. It's such a hard question because it's like, who's making the decisions? Is it him telling McDaniel, yeah, he's good to go, or yeah, put him in, or is it McDaniel making his own decisions? Because if that's the case, the man's blind. Because when I went down for training camp, Liam Eichenberg was getting his lunch money taken like almost every practice, and they still trotted him out as a starter. Like, if that's the case, then, you know, McDaniel, but it could be because, again, they put Huntley out there against the Tennessee Titans when he wasn't ready. Like, it's decision making on top of coaching. But I think that Butch Berry is a good coach. I think he got a bad rap in Denver. So yeah, I like Butch Berry. I think he's a good coach. Okay. I think it's more of this decision making, and it's more of luck.
Yeah. I'm willing to give him another shot, but I need to see something this year, man.
Man, if they don't do something, like they need to win a playoff game or make the playoffs, but I think it's win a playoff game, you're going to see a whole new team in 2026
from top down. Yeah.
Anthony, I think the last question.
Yeah. So, you know, I was not a fan of bringing back McDaniel and Greer at the end of the season. I saw a lot of good things out of McDaniel, but I also saw a lot of immaturity that just never improved. And then, you know, Chris Greer's been here for probably longer than I've been alive, and we haven't won anything. So, you know, I'm wondering just like where, like we try to stay overly optimistic on the show because it's too easy to be pessimistic, but like, where's the confidence level right now in the fact that, you know, will they nail this draft? Will they have a product ready for, you know, competing with the Bills? Like, can we potentially win a playoff game? Because when I look at the roster right now and what we've done so far, I'm worried, man. Like, we haven't necessarily gotten better. I mean, maybe we've stayed static, but I don't see where the improvements are.
Yeah, and that's where I'm worried, because you would think it's like it can go 2 different ways. You can have a GM who knows he won't be here next year, but is trying to save his job. So essentially he is going to use the money, use the draft picks, because I'm not going to have to deal with it in 2026. Or you have a GM who thinks, I need to save my job, and if I save my job, I can't hurt myself in 2026. So it's like, which way is he playing it? And it seems like he's playing it, the I don't want to hurt myself in 2026, because he's not doing much.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talked about it, and it's like, you look at this team, and even if we do add, you know, some of the names, like we add a Rasul Douglas, Asante Samuel Jr., or Mike Hilton, we add a Justin Simmons or a Quandre Diggs, like we add these guys we can plug in and they're starters, then we draft nicely. And then you look at the Miami Dolphins, are they better than they were in 2024? And it's like, not really. And we're in another situation where a starter goes down. Did we build depth? And on the offensive line, there's no depth. On the defensive line, there's no depth. You know, we were 27th in the NFL in sacks. Like, it was bad. And we had really good pass rushers at some point. So it's like, what do we do? So, you know, I would have thought these guys are fighting for their job. They came out, did a presser. We're going to double down on the offensive line and free agency and the draft. Again, I haven't seen the doubling down on anything. You know, we brought in one guy who I was happy about. Outside of that, Burrow and Liam Eichenberg, like who? That's not doubling down. So again, I think if everything stays as it is, I don't know. I don't see this team being better. And
they did a really good job of looking sad in that press conference. So
they really
played it off. Like it was,
they nailed it. Yeah, you know what the iron. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
My friend made a short clip for the post game of the Jets game, and me being like, "Hey, they're gonna get fired," and then the intro to the video, like 15 minutes later, when I found out that they were coming back, and how it was like me, like, "Hey, they're probably gonna get fired," and then it cuts to me just like rubbing my eyes, like, "You've got to be kidding me!" And that's just, they came out like you said, they were looking sad, and they were like, "We're gonna do better," and then Stephen Ross comes out with this whole paper that status quo wasn't good enough. But that's what drove me nuts is he comes out, the play on the field. I don't want you to think the play on the field was good, and I don't want you to think that status quo is good enough. But we're bringing them back. Status quo. It's like, you got to be kidding me. It's like spitting on me and telling me it's raining. Like, come on, man.
And so quickly, too. It was like,
like, give it a day, man.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's like, too, you bring James Daniels in, which I think it's a really good move.
Best signing in my
opinion. He plays. He's so nasty. Like, putting him next to Brewer is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what you said. You bring back Eichenberg, and it's hard. Even to me, I find myself being pretty optimistic about McDaniel and Greer. But it's hard to do that because you're going like, yeah, I get all the stuff that you could say about Eichenberg. He can be versatile. He could be depth, whatever. But optically, you just can't make that move. You can't do it.
Yeah.
No, and and they know, they've seen how fans reacted because it wasn't a good reaction. And then they put out the video of him, the pictures of him signing his contract, and then like whoever's on the social media team of the Miami Dolphins needs to read the room, because why did you do that to Liam Eichenberg? Like, he's a human being, and I'm not mad at him, and obviously he's not great at his job, but I'm able to take the person out of the game, as the social media person. Why are you releasing that for the replies to just be filled with the most nasty things for him? Like,
he sees it, right? He sees it
100%, because I think he was tagged in it, like tone deaf out the butt.
I did notice they didn't do one for Zach Wilson though, so they saved his hide.
Exactly.
Although the video interview that he had with Travis was interesting.
Yeah, I gotta watch that. I haven't watched that yet.
My last reaction to all this is that everybody saw what the Eagles did to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl with two really strong defensive tackles and then good edge rushers off the edge. So everybody, and I mean everybody, went out and paid big money to defensive tackles to fill the room. Except for the Miami Dolphins, who just sat there and watched everybody else do it. Like, this is not the time to be trying to be a trendsetter. Follow the trend, boys, because your trend stinks right now.
Yeah,
100%.
So I know you are sorry, Keith. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know we're at the 50-minute mark. I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have time to hang out? We have a really cool segment towards the end of the show where we take some fan questions and we chop them. I put them up and we talk about them. Or do you need to bow out and we can thank you accordingly?
Oh, unfortunately, I do have to go put my daughter to sleep.
Well, that's a little selfish. All right, Keith, do you want to?
All right. Well, DouglieDoWrong, thank you so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime.
Oh, definitely.
The show, we would love to have you on. And look, I think I speak for everybody when I say this has been awesome.
You are a saint. Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Whenever you guys want me, hit me up, and I will definitely be on again.
You got it.
DouglieDoWrong. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man.
There he is. Thank you, sir.